Thanks, Ciara, and thanks for everybody giving their statements today. My first question is in relation to Dr. Keogh. Dr. Keogh, in your statement, you said about a mental health co-produced health system. What would that system look like if it was implemented?
I think it would, it would look different. So, it would involve a very different kind of interaction from the outset when somebody gets in touch with a mental health service. So, really, I suppose, establishing what the issue is for the person. I think sometimes there can be a kind of a response that doesn't take full account of the person's life experience, what's brought them to this point. It can be about let's just fix this presenting problem. And sometimes a little bit more time and engagement is needed. So it really involves listening to and engaging with the person and identifying what their priorities are, and rather to moving too quickly to how can we fix this. And there's been a lot of work done on that. So there's the dialogue, trying to remember the actual term for it. There's a dialogue programme that was run in I think it's still in place in West Cork, which is a system of assessing and working with individuals and their families, which has been really successful in Finland, for example. Open dialogue, I think it's called. And, so it's a completely different way. A team comes together, the person and their family member are there, if that's what they want. And they kind of work together to establish what the issues are and how they can be resolved. So care planning is a part of that. I think the care planning process can sometimes be seen as overly bureaucratic, but if it's done well and properly, a care plan is a kind of a jointly produced program, I think this idea that the mental health professionals and the person and their family really have to work together. And it can't be about, well, here you go, here's what we're prescribing for you, and you need to go off and do that, do what you're told, rather than a much more interactive process.
Just my second question is very kind of a general question that I mentioned last week in relation to the overall mental health budget. And at the moment, Ireland spends probably just over 5% of mental health care in relation to the overall health budget. Now, Sláinte Care and kind of other kind of European countries, UN say that we should be spending between 10 and 14%. And even in Britain, I think they spend 14% in the NHS in relation to mental health care. So in your opinion, both MHI and MHR, how do we kind of, close that gap? Because it's a massive gap. It's a massive gap. And if there's no political will to close that gap, we could be still talking about this in 10 years' time. Because we all know if people get intervention at that right time, if they have a mental health crisis, the outcomes are drastically good. If people do not get mental health care at that particular time in the crisis, then the outcomes are pretty dire. So, and that's about services at the right time. So how do we kind of close that gap in relation to the overall budgetary spend on mental health care?
I can take this. As I said in my opening statement, high quality services require high quality investment. That's the fact. And in Ireland we have a history of underinvestment in our mental health services. So we're starting from a very low base, and I think we need to have a plan in place. It's the government's own commitment through Sláinte Care that 10% of the budget will be spent on mental health. So that commitment is there. But how are we going to get from where we are to that? That's the question we would like answered. And I think there is also, money alone is not the solution. It's not going to achieve the reform that's needed. We need that political will, and we need leadership. And that's one of the reasons why we've been calling for a very senior role within the HSE at director level or above. But key to the role is that they report directly into the CEO of the HSE to drive forward that reform that's needed, and to provide that leadership and that strategic direction. And if we are serious about giving mental health parity of esteem with physical health, both the investment and the leadership is needed. We need both of them to really promote and to provide better services for individuals across this country.
I might just add to that. I think, if we commit to incrementally moving forward with this, if we have a 10-year costed implementation plan for sharing the vision, it doesn't mean we have to jump from 5 to 10%, by next year. But over a 10-year period, we should be incrementally able to move to that point of at least 10%. I think if we're also calling for much better cross-government, cross-departmental, cross-agency working, we should be also get better at tracking the contribution that's being made by other departments and agencies to mental health spend. So, for example, if the Department of Social Protection is funding employment support workers, that's a crucial part of the mental health infrastructure. If housing are funding housing support workers, again, that's crucial. If the Department of Education is funding psychological supports in schools, so we need to be much better at capturing that. But I think it should be beyond our collective wisdom and effort to be able to move incrementally to 10% over a 10-year period.
And finally, Dr. Keogh, again, this is kind of a general question, quite nuanced question, but do you have confidence in the sharing the vision document in relation to the policy document? Because obviously the precursor to this, if you look at it, was largely never implemented. And we all know documents can be kind of filed here and there's never any actions. So how do you have confidence in the shared vision document?
I do have confidence in the document, and I suppose I should declare a conflict of interest because I was a member of the oversight group that developed the policy. I was also the researcher working with the expert group that wrote a lot of Vision for Change. I might disagree with you somewhat on the implementation of Vision for Change. I know everything wasn't implemented, and there's still a long way to go in terms of staffing levels. But I think it has brought about important changes in the mental health system, and it kind of set out that infrastructure that we're now working towards. Implementation has been painfully slow, unfortunately. In terms of sharing the vision, I think the implementation structures have been much more sophisticated from the outset. I think that was one of the difficulties with sharing our Vision for Change. So there's a very well-worked implementation group with a number of panels working to it. And I think that we've learned an awful lot more about how you go about implementation. And the mental health directorate in the HSE, in recent years has adopted a really interesting approach to actually resourcing implementation. That was one of the points I was making in my opening statement. We can sometimes think that implementation is just a magic process. If we really, really, really want to implement sharing the vision, it'll somehow happen. But, we need to resource that process. It involves change. And we all know that change for structures and individuals is difficult. We have to learn new things. We have to change how we might have done things in the past. So I do have confidence. I think there's a good implementation structure. And I think we need to support it, but with a critical eye to that, and to keep encouraging but critically moving it forward.
Thanks very much, and great to see Bear Grogan here.
Thank you, Gino.